Welcome, and thank you for being here today. This public meeting is focused on the Inner Harbor Navigation Canal Lock, also known locally as the Industrial Canal Lock Replacement Project. We're here to walk through the current Supplemental Draft General Reevaluation Report and Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement, and most importantly, to hear from you. The Inner Harbor Navigation Canal connects the Mississippi River to the Gulf Intracoastal Waterway, forming a key junction in the National Inland Navigation System. Just as critical is what surrounds the lock: the neighborhoods of Holy Cross, the Lower Ninth Ward, St. Claude, and Bywater. These are residential, historic, and culturally significant communities, and they're still grappling with the legacy of disinvestment and the lasting impacts of Hurricane Katrina. The project also plays a regional role. St. Bernard Parish relies heavily on the St. Claude and Claiborne Avenue bridges to reach the rest of New Orleans. Of the four roads out of the parish, two cross this canal, making this corridor a daily means of commuting, emergency access, and economic connection. That's why this project is about more than replacing old infrastructure. It's about making sure the neighborhoods and communities affected, both directly and indirectly, are part of the planning process. Before we dive in today's agenda, let's take a moment to talk about why this lock matters on a national scale. The Gulf Intercoastal Waterway, or GIWW, stretches more than 1,100 miles from Texas to Florida. It allows barges and other commercial vessels to move cargo efficiently and safely without entering open Gulf waters. The IHNC lock is the only connection point between the Mississippi River and the GIWW on the East Bank, and it's a critical link in the inland waterway network. It is also a bottleneck that has ripple effects across the entire U.S. supply chain. That's why this project is about more than just concrete and gates. It's about improving efficiency, resilience, and due to the Community Impact Mitigation Plan and Transportation Mitigation Program, community outcomes. Today, we'll walk through why the lock needs to be replaced, what the recommended plan includes, and how your feedback continues to shape this effort. The IHNC lock is 102 years old and was built for a very different era of navigation. Today, it's simply too small to accommodate most modern barge configurations. Because of that, the lock now ranks first in average transit time and second in average delay time of any lock in the nation. It's also increasingly unreliable, with more frequent unplanned outages and a growing backlog of maintenance needs. These delays increase shipping costs, which ultimately affect businesses, consumers, and the overall economy. These inefficiencies have a national economic impact. Every delay raises costs for shippers, which costs are ultimately passed down to the consumers. Replacing the lock is essential to ensuring this key national corridor continues to serve the country effectively. While the lock itself is a major constraint, there are broader infrastructure challenges that factor into this project. The St. Claude Bridge, which is part of the current lock structure, is also over a century old and nearing the end of its useful life. And when the lock is shut down, whether for maintenance or due to mechanical failure, there are no viable alternatives. The Tennessee Tombigbee detour adds 17 days to a trip, and the open Gulf route is unsafe for most inland marine traffic. Replacing this lock is about more than navigation. It's about improving reliability and protecting national economic flows while making improvements to related local infrastructure. Congress first authorized the replacement of this lock in 1956. Over time, the project authority evolved. The 1986 Water Resources Development Act provided project funding, and later laws require community and transportation mitigation. The Corps is required by law not only to address navigation, but to consider community impacts and local traffic. The goal of this project is to improve how vessels move through the region in a way that's economically justified and environmentally responsible. At the same time, this project cannot reduce the levels of flood or storm risk reduction currently in place. That standard is non-negotiable and a central part of how the plan is evaluated. On May 30th, 2025, the Corps released the Supplemental Draft General Reevaluation Report and Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement, or GRR, and SEIS. This document evaluated multiple options, including taking no action, and identified a recommended plan. At its core is the construction of a new 900-foot long, 110-foot wide, and 22-foot deep lock to be built within the existing canal footprint between Claiborne Avenue and Florida Avenue. The plan also includes a new permanent double bascule bridge at St. Claude Avenue, new levees and flood walls that tie into the regional flood risk management system, phased demolition of the existing lock, borrow materials sourced from the Bonnie Carey spillway to reduce haul distances, implementation of the Community Impact Mitigation Plan and a Transportation Mitigation Plan to reduce and mitigate for effects on surrounding neighborhoods. We'll talk more about those mitigation plans later in this presentation. Today's tows are often made up of 4 or more 295-foot long by 54-foot wide barges. But the existing lock, which is only 640 feet long, can't fit most of these tows in one pass. That means crews have to break the tow apart, lock each piece through individually, and then reconnect them on the other side. This is time-consuming, increases wear and tear on equipment, and leads to delays for every vessel in line. The new 900-foot lock allows these same tows to pass through in fewer trips, or even without breaking apart at all. This means fewer total lockages, shorter delays, and lower costs for shippers. It also means a reduced number of times that the St. Claude and Florida Avenue bridges need to be opened for vessel passings. However, there's a trade-off regarding bridge openings. With the new lock located farther north in the canal, Mississippi River water levels will pass under the Claiborne Avenue Bridge, which means it will need to open more often during high river stages. A key finding from our modeling shows that the duration of opening stays the same, typically 7 to 10 minutes, although openings are occasionally lengthier. So again, while the frequency of the Claiborne opening increases at certain times of the year, St. Claude and Florida will open less often. Several major updates have been made since earlier reports in 1997 to 900 feet by 22 feet deep, reflecting the removal of deep draft navigation following the closure of the MRGO. With this change, the Port of New Orleans is no longer the non-federal sponsor. The project is now 100% federally funded, including construction and maintenance. The lock will use modern sector gates, which are faster and more reliable than traditional miter gates. The plan includes a new St. Claude Bridge with ADA access and a protected bike lane, and a design that avoids the need for a temporary bridge or a long-term bridge closure. The current bridge will remain in service during construction, with at least one lane open in each direction and pedestrian access maintained. The real estate plan now includes acquisition of 3 residential properties on St. Claude Avenue. These property owners have been notified per the Uniform Relocation Act and are eligible for relocation assistance. Removal of the temporary bypass channel allows engineers to convert flood walls on the east side to levees, which are more resilient, more attractive, and more user-friendly than flood walls, improving the viewscapes along Sister Street and Jordan Avenue, as well as recreational opportunities. This time, mitigation planning has been strengthened, more responsive to community needs, and shaped directly by public feedback. And finally, under the requirements of the Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, we've been coordinating with consulting parties to ensure cultural and historic resources are considered. The process, called the AMOA, or Amended Memorandum of Agreement, is being developed now and will be included in the final report. The neighborhoods surrounding the IHNC, Holy Cross, Lower Ninth Ward, Bywater, and St. Claude, have changed dramatically since this project was first studied. That's why, in 2023, the Corps led a two-phased outreach process to listen, learn, and improve transparency. Over 280 residents participated, contributing over 500 comments and more than 90 individual ideas for community mitigation. Common themes included affordable housing, safety, health services and job training, flood risk, air quality and noise, concerns over property values, culture, and neighborhood identity. About two-thirds of the comments expressed opposition to the lock replacement or to the project more broadly. But many participants, even those critical of the project, still offered creative, thoughtful suggestions for community benefits and neighborhood investment. That feedback directly informed changes to the Community Impact Mitigation Plan, or CIMP, and development of the Transportation Mitigation Program, or TIMP. And they also help guide our ongoing Section 106 consultation process with consulting parties, where we're working to assess and resolve adverse effects to historic properties caused by the project. Section 106 participants include the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation, or ACHP, the State Historic Preservation Officer, or SHPO, tribal partners, local governments, additional consulting parties, and the public. To date, we've held 6 consultation meetings and 1 tribal partners meeting. We're working to solicit ideas, suggestions, and input from consulting parties and the public to inform the development of the AMOA. Moving forward, the Corps remains committed to an open door approach, with more opportunities to shape how mitigation is prioritized, funded, and implemented. This is your neighborhood, and your voice will continue to shape what this project means for its future. As discussed earlier, under the recommended plan, the existing St. Claude Bridge will stay open during construction, with at least 1 lane in each direction and pedestrian access maintained. The lock will be constructed within the existing IHNC footprint, which reduces disruption to surrounding infrastructure. The recommended plan also ensures that the sewage and water board systems remain unaffected, both during and after construction. The Corps is also coordinating closely with emergency services, transit agencies, and transportation officials to minimize traffic delays, noise, dust, and access issues during construction. We continue to engage directly with the community members to redevelop the mitigation plans. And if you'd like to learn more about how all of these steps apply to your neighborhood, our team is here today to answer your questions one-on-one. The Community Impact Mitigation Plan, or CIMP, which also known to some as the Community Opportunities Plan of Action, is one of the most important features of the IHNC lock replacement project that the Corps is using to reduce the burden of construction on surrounding neighborhoods. Originally developed with the IHNC replacement project's recommended plan in 1995, The SIMP is a flexible framework designed to offset or minimize the short and long-term impacts of this project. It has been updated based on the present needs and concerns of the community. It includes potential investments in things like noise barriers, air quality improvements, street repairs, sidewalks and lighting, public spaces, and neighborhood amenities, all based on the feedback we received from residents during the 2023 engagement process. The measures included in the draft SIMP were directly shaped by what we heard from you. That includes concerns about health, safety, flooding, mobility, and quality of life. But one of the most important things to understand is that the SIMP is intended to be a flexible plan that meets the changing needs of the community. The Corps will continue working with local leaders, potential non-federal sponsors, and community members to refine and implement mitigation in a way that delivers real, tangible benefits. If there's a mitigation idea that's important to you, something you don't see in the draft, we encourage you to share it today. This plan is meant to adapt to what the community needs, not just what's on paper right now. The Transportation Mitigation Program, or TIMP, is focused on keeping the community moving safely during construction and once the project is complete, especially across St. Claude, Claiborne, and Florida avenues. The TIMP includes a mix of physical improvements and operational strategies, things like upgraded traffic signals, new signage, safer crosswalks, and ADA-compliant sidewalk improvements. It also involves close coordination with RTA to minimize public transit impacts and with emergency services to maintain response times across all phases of construction. But the plan also looks ahead by incorporating technology-driven solutions. That includes advanced digital signage that can provide real-time notifications about bridge openings, helping drivers make informed decisions before they get stuck in traffic. It also includes integration with smartphone apps, which could eventually alert users to anticipated bridge lifts, detours, or traffic congestion across the project corridor. As with the Community Impact Mitigation Plan, the TIMP is meant to evolve. We know that conditions on the ground will shift over time, so this plan is designed to adjust with input from the public, traffic engineers, and local agencies alike. We encourage you to share your ideas or concerns about traffic, transit, and access. Your feedback will help us prioritize the most effective solutions and keep the community moving safely throughout the life of the project. The total estimated first cost of the IHNC lock replacement project is currently projected to be $4.7 billion. This includes construction of the lock, new bridge, levees, flood walls, and more importantly, the full implementation of the SIMP and TIMP. These mitigation plans are not optional or separate. They are fully integrated into the project budget and required for the project to move forward. Funding for construction will come 75% from the U.S. Treasury and 25% from the Inland Waterways Trust Fund, a user-supported federal fund for commercial barge traffic. Once the project is complete, operation and maintenance will be 100% federally funded. This project has a benefit cost ratio, or BCR, of 1.03, meaning it provides more economic benefit than it costs, a key threshold for continued federal support. The current cost estimate reflects the latest available data, but has not yet undergone final certification. That will happen before the release of the final report. The fully funded cost, which includes inflation and full life cycle budgeting, is approximately $2.3 billion higher than the first cost, but still in line with other large-scale federal civil works projects. While the lock and navigation features will be fully federally funded and maintained, local sponsors will be needed to operate and maintain completed SIMP and TIMP measures, such as public space improvements or traffic management features, once construction is complete. For modified flood risk reduction structures, existing agencies like the Louisiana Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority and the Orleans Levee District will continue their current maintenance responsibilities. Here's where we are in the study process. The draft report was released on May 30th, 2025. The public comment period ends September 2nd. After considering your feedback, addressing comments, and making any changes to the report, the Corps will finalize the report and submit the recommendation, along with a draft director's report and draft record of decision to headquarters early next year. If the director's report is approved, the ROD is signed, and Congress approves the increased cost, the project would move into the budgeting cycle, and pending receipt of funding, transition into what's called the Pre-Construction Engineering and Design Phase, or PED. That's when detailed engineering plans and acquisition strategies for construction are developed. It's also when the Community Impact Mitigation Plan and Transportation Mitigation Program will be refined and specific measures are prioritized based on continued community input, technical feasibility, and funding made available by Congress. These will continue to evolve during PED. But before construction can begin, Congress must appropriate funding. While the project is authorized and economically justified, it must compete for limited federal construction dollars. If the recommended plan is approved and funding is secured, construction could begin as early as 2034, but that timeline depends entirely on the appropriation process. Your feedback is critical. There are several ways to share your thoughts today. Speak at the microphone, submit a comment card, talk to a court reporter, scan the QR code to comment online, or email or mail your feedback using the contact info on the screen. The public comment period is open through September 2nd, and every comment will be reviewed and considered as we finalize the plan. We're grateful for your time, your input, and continued engagement. Thank you again for being here and for being part of shaping this project's future.